Hello and welcome to Spinster's Library. I'm Claudia, and in this completely unprepared, unscripted, unresearched video, I want to talk about diversity in classics. I said I wasn't going to do any more videos about classics this month, but I am participating in classicsathon, and that really got me thinking. Before we get into the main discussion part of this video, I want to just make two things very clear. The first thing I want to make clear is that this is not a discussion about if we need diversity in classics. If you are a person who disagrees with the basic premise that we need more diversity in the books that we read, then please do me a favor and keep those thoughts to yourself, because I am so tired of trying to convince people that straight white men are not the be-all and end-all of literature. The second point is about my personal definition of classics. So, for my own record keeping, for my own channel and for my own thinking, I have defined a classic as any book that was written or published before 1960. This is not the most elegant definition of a classic, and it certainly isn't the way that we use the word classic in our common literary discourse. But for me it makes sense because it is a definition that by itself does not filter out certain authors. So the difficulty in reading more diverse classics is twofold. Firstly, unless we have a time machine and can travel back to the 1830s and set up our own publishing agency, we have no control over the books that have been published in the past. It won't come as a surprise that if you just look at volume, again, I'm kind of reaching here because I have not done any research for this, but if we just look at volume, my guess would be that the majority of published works from the time period before 1960 would be by straight white men. But what we can change is the books that we do pick up and read. In any list of the literary canon, whether that is 100 books you must read before you die, or whether that is any university course about 19th century literature, there will be an imbalance, and this imbalance does not change unless we actively work on changing it. So this video is very much about the how of that. Before I go any further, I really want to recommend a video by Books by Lanes very, very highly. Let me just find it so I can give you the correct title, but it will be linked in the description box. So she did a video titled "Scared of Reading Classics? Let's Talk About It." And I highly, highly recommend that. It's a very nuanced and, unlike this, a very well prepared discussion in which she talks about various issues around classics, including the literary canon and its issues with diversity. I would also recommend on her channel the series Black Writers Matter. Her videos on books written by Black authors include a lot of discussion of classics, including 12 Years a Slave by Solomon Northup and Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin, and other books that fit my personal definition of classics. So, as I said earlier, I am participating in classicsathon, which is a readathon hosted by Lucy the Reader, in which I basically try and read at least one classic this month. And I did a TBR video about that earlier this week. So let's have a look and see how I do on the diversity scale. So this is my TBR that I picked out without specifically considering diversity as a factor. Yeah, there's 6 books on there, 4 written by white guys, 2 written by white women. Where's my medal? No, you get the point. We have to actively search out diverse books in order to get that balance in our own personal reading. And that is really not an easy thing to do. So if we look at, say, the 19th century classic, it's easy enough finding books written by white women. Those white women tend to be Jane Austen or a Bronte. But there is so much more out there, and I mean, technically we do know that. So how do you go about finding those books? I think the first step is to look beyond Britain. British literature dominates our list of classics, and I love it. You know, I love British literature. I've done a whole series about 19th century British literature. But unfortunately, that tends to be very white, and it also tends to be very limited in terms of social circumstances of the author, in terms of the society that they lived in and that they wrote about. But the truth is, other countries had literature as well, and it's annoying to say that I barely know anything about literature that does not come from Britain or from Germany. And I don't need to tell you that German literature of the 19th century has a similar author profile as British literature of that time. Basically, what I just did in order to educate myself is Google diverse classics. I'm going to post some of the links that I found down below. Minerva, do you really have to now? She really has to now. So there's this page on listchallenges.com, 50 diverse classics. And the second on the list is the one author that most people bring up when they try and find a diverse classic author, and that is Alexandre Dumas of Three Musketeers fame. And then a lot of the other books... Minerva, what are you doing? A lot of the other books are what we would consider... No, are what I would consider modern classics. So there's Maya Angelou, Octavia Butler, Kazuo Ishiguro. Books that sadly don't fit my personal definition of a classic. So I'm wondering, do I need to expand that definition? Do I need to expand it more into the present? But then would the word classic lose all meaning? Minerva, can you get your bum out of my face? Minerva, I'm trying to do a serious discussion here. Anyway, I thought I had a point to this discussion, but my point is basically that I need to do better, that we need to do better, and I want to hear your recommendations of diverse classics that you've read. I want to hear about your personal definition of the word classic, and if you actively try and include diverse authors into that definition. I want to be able to Google 100 best classics and find a list that is made up of more than Dickens and Austen and those kinds of people. But I don't know how to get to that point. But I do know that if we all work together and make an active effort to do that, then it is going to happen. So yeah, please let me know your opinion down below. I'm going to leave this video without a conclusion, which I know is quite unsatisfying, but I think this has to be an open discourse, and well, I don't have a solution. I need to do better, and this bit is basically just a really long way of me saying I need to do better. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.